we go again, Pete, for another Tuesday Night Live. I'm going to throw straight to you because time's a-wasting.
Thanks, mate. Great to have you all with us for another Tuesday Night Live of the Adelaide Crowcast. And, boy, what a weekend it was. It was absolutely huge. Of course, it was Showdown weekend, and more than that, it was Port home at Showdown weekend, which always means that generally we're going to get onto the national news services, and that's exactly how it turned out. And anyway, before we get into that, we'll welcome the regular guest panellists for the AFL Crowcast, Phoenix, Nikki and Macca. How are we all this evening?
Good, thank you.
Very well.
Very well. Eating my toffee and honeycomb Gippsland yogurt, which I've got to say is a taste sensation.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that after worrying about the time wasting away. But anyway...
free plug.
And also, I should just mention, please stay with us because we just a couple of hours ago recorded an interview with the Crows SNFL captain, Hugh Greenwood. Great interview it was too, very, very interesting. And I think he's been a really terrific addition to the Adelaide Crows. He brings a lot of professionalism and a lot of leadership. So he's a very good interview. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we will just bite our lip just for a second and we'll just go to Nikki's news.
Oh, what happened there?
Well, you said time's a wasting.
It's because your yogurt spilled all over it.
Bloody hell's going on now? There it is.
There it goes again. Well done, Phoenix.
Oh, you
Stop eating your yogurt and actually put your finger on the keyboard as you should be.
Seriously. I had it all set to go. Pete's given me the cue. I've got it there. Press the button and... Oh, forget it.
All right. I think we're going to have quite a long chat on something, but we'll just get to two pieces of news that is not very welcome for either the Melbourne Football Club or for us. So Max Gawn, who did his hamstring on the weekend, did sustain tendon damage, went in for surgery on Monday, so he'll be out 10 to 12 weeks. And scans have revealed today for Mitch McGovern that he has sustained some serious damage as well, and he'll be meeting with surgeons later on in the week to see if surgery is required.
Yeah, it's not good news, is it?
That is not good news for either of those two players. So that's not a fun thing to start off with. In tribunal news, so the AFL coffers got a little bit fuller this week with a few fines and stuff. I was quite surprised that Jared Lyons actually had that in him. Not the money, but the smacking Hawthorn bloke in the face. I thought, does he still think he's a Crows player and finally, could get one back against Hawthorn? I don't know.
If he'd have stayed at the Crows, he wouldn't have had the money.
No. Spot on. And, of course, Charlie, because Charlie did get him high. And so it was a low impact and quite deservedly got a little bit of monetary fine, which players never like paying. And Paddy Ryder got 2 weeks, but this is what I found hilarious. Because he has a clean record, because he wasn't reported last year, that's because he wasn't playing because he's a drug cheat. He got the 2 weeks down to 1. So he has a clean record in front of that tribunal. There's another tribunal.
Find any records, that's the problem, Nikki.
Yeah, true. But unfortunately, we have made big news, and it's probably taken the gloss off what the AFL would really like to be promoting, which is our first ever AFL game on Good Friday, happening between North Melbourne and the Bulldogs. Anybody really going to be interested in watching that?
I'll watch it.
But it's not a must-see game, really, the way the pair of them are playing.
Not really.
No, but it's still a game of footy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Won't be much else on. Is there any SNFL on Good Friday this year?
I haven't checked, but maybe. Somebody else might be able to help us out there.
Didn't they play last year?
I thought they did.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think they did.
Just to add to that injury list, of course, is Josh Jenkins. That he won't be playing this week, and we're not really sure when he will be playing because he has got severe bruising to the cartilage, which apparently sits behind the rib cage.
As somebody who's had the intercostals torn off their ribs, I can absolutely sympathise with Josh. That even if you don't break a rib, there are still quite painful issues around that area, and it affects everybody differently. So I think the club is actually right in saying it's a week-by-week basis because you can't know if it is going to get better or worse. It's a very tricky area, unfortunately.
We probably better chuff along because I'm just conscious of the fact that we've got our Hugh Greenwood interview to fit in tonight's cast. That will take a little bit of time. And we've got some, I guess, really, really significant issues to talk about in terms of the fallout from the showdown. Of course, we've all heard it today, and I just want to set this going with my absolute outright anger and disgust at the Port Adelaide Football Club and its minions, and Cane Corns in particular. This is the second Port Showdown in a row that has erupted to the extent that it's made the national news services. This is the second Port Home Showdown in a row where they've had a membership suspended for racist abuse or racist acts. The fight up at the Hill End was acknowledged to be started because they were spitting on Crow supporters and ended up fighting between themselves. And yet we have the narrative hijacked by by Port media types who come out and start making ridiculous assertions, like there was an 18-year-old Port woman king hit by a Crow supporter and she ended up unconscious and in hospital. Now, I've been tweeting this afternoon trying to get some truth in this out of, in particular, the person who made that allegation, Cane Corns. And of course, there is nothing forthcoming. It hijacks the narrative, and so then what ends up happening, we end up on the national sports services being identified as South Australians in total that are causing these problems. And it is absolutely disgraceful that as a football club, they will not just stand up and put their hand up and take responsibility for their supporters. All they will do is continue to deflect and try and blame other people and other supporters for the conduct that continually goes down at Port Home Showdowns. And I've had a gutful of being associated with this. It is just drives me insane.
Well, Pete,
pathetic effort. That's pretty hard on an individual, but he's going to have to live with that.
Nothing's changed.
I kind of have to come in here and say it's not all of them. Just like there are supporters, and I have witnessed our own Crow supporters saying some horrible things as well.
Proportionately, but, Nikki, it's
a
vast majority.
When has a Crows Home Showdown hit the national news services for crowd behaviour?
This is where I think the issue is that
answer the question.
Both of those.
When has that happened? Just quickly answer that question.
There hasn't been, but
no. Full stop. Thank you.
Can I explain something here? Both of those two Port Home Showdowns are night games.
No, it doesn't make any fucking difference. I mean, they're not children. They're grown
they're not children.
Adults. We play night games all the time, and no one carries on like a dickhead because of I've drunk too much. Like, grow up, Port supporters. For God's sakes, grow up. And I'm tired of the Crows being lumped in the same, or tarred with the same brush. I mean, we've got Mark Robertson coming out in the Herald Sun today saying, what's wrong with South Australians? Well, two things. First of all, it's only a few of us. And second of all, I wonder who was booing Goods for the last part of his bloody career. Wasn't that Melbourne people? So Can we not make it a state issue? Can we just make it what it is, which is a racial issue? And can we call out the perpetrators rather than just generalising all the time? Because it's just rubbish.
I agree.
What I was going to say about the night games, though, is they were given to Port to increase the crowd because we know Port struggles in terms of getting crowd numbers there. So they were given the the night games, the really highlighted ones, whereas our showdowns have mostly been day games. I think the AFL needs to actually step in and take those night showdowns away from Port. They need to be turned back to Crows games, and it'll be interesting to see if you're going to get further issues when it's on the other foot.
Well, there's been no history of it all when it's been a Crows game, Nikki. So the answer is it's always been, the issue's always been with Port supporters, and Phoenix is quite right. I totally agree with him. I don't want to be lumped in with those bucket bastards. You know, they not all of them. You are right, but they have too many of them.
They're so full of spin. And what happened, and this is why it's happened again, is because the last home showdown, when it was the most disgraceful act imaginable, throwing a banana. I mean, it doesn't get lower than that. And what did they do? Did they ban the member for life? I mean, this is a member. This is a Port member. Did they ban her for life? No. They give her an indefinite suspension, and then they use it to spruik their Indigenous, program or whatever the hell it is. And then you hear nothing more about it. And so, of course, there's no strong action taken. There's no responsibility taken. And so then what happens is the very, very next home showdown, same thing happens again. So if they're fair income about doing something, which they aren't, let's be honest, all they're trying to do is just drag everybody down with them. If they were fair income, they would suspend these people for life. They would give them a lifetime ban, and the SMA would do exactly the same thing, and that would be an end to it.
As it should be.
The one thing that Port Power have brought over from their SANFL tradition, because let's face it, they haven't brought a premiership culture over. They haven't brought a resilient culture over, but what they have brought over is their perpetual blaming every other bastard except themselves. That club is just steeped in deflection and pointing fingers everywhere else but internally, and until that club actually starts to harden up and have a good long look at itself, they're not going to win on the field, and they're not going to win off the field. Because they were shit against Adelaide, and Adelaide weren't great. And they were shit. They were a rabble.
But one thing, and Peter and I were right, we did say there'd be reports, and we did say there'd be injuries. And then that's why I hate playing the mongrels.
We did say that, because that's the other thing they've put across. And you can't deny that. If in relation to no other team, it's particularly in relation to Adelaide, they've brought across their thug culture from the SANFL days. And we sat here last week, and Macca and I both agreed and both said, we talked about, well, who's going to cop the concussion this week? Who's going to get belted this week? And of course, it was Riley Knight. You just know, it's going to happen, and we're going to get sucked in, and we end up with reports out of it. Same thing happened last year before the West Coast game, where Brodie Smith gets knocked out or knocked on. He gets concussion. Sloan gets rubbed out. It's the same all the time. It's the Port home showdowns all the time.
What a cowardly attack that too was by Ryder too. A great big mountain of a man attacking probably one of the closest to amongst, let's say, the two or three smallest men on the ground, and big hero goes in there and belts him. Well done, Ryder.
It's just ridiculous.
And the fact that Lade then was coming out and victim blaming the Crows players for picking on him and getting in him during the game, that's why he finally snapped and did something silly. There's the victim blaming once again.
It's a perpetual issue with Port Adelaide. They've always been that way, and they always will be that way, because it's etched into the bloody wood panelling of their club rooms, and they'll never be any different. And they'll have years where they've just got so much talent they can't help but win. But every other season, there's an issue, there's a problem, there's an excuse, and it's never them.
I mean, let's not forget it was the Basher Hurley got vilification from them as well. And Jared Waitley brought that up tonight on 360, and I think he was quite right. And yeah. He's not normally given to these kind of statements. And Nikki, we discussed off air that he did back away from this a little bit, but the reality is, at the start of the show, he said exactly what should happen, and that is that if Port Adelaide were an A-League club then the FFA would be expected to make sure that the club is held accountable and responsible for these actions.
Absolutely. And if the AFL weren't so toothless, and if Port weren't so gutless, both parties would stand up and tell it how it is instead of trying to apportion blame elsewhere. The AFL should come down hard on Port Adelaide. This is, as Pete rightly points out, 2 home showdowns in a row now this has happened, plus various other occasions. And Port themselves, if they want to trot out their, fantastic Indigenous program and all the rest of it, how must the Indigenous players on their list, Chad Wingard, Impey, Patrick Ryder, Pal Pepper now, how must those blokes be feeling about the club that they're playing for and the supporters that they're playing for? Port needs to stand up and say, yep, we as a club, as a group of supporters have a problem and it's no longer good enough just to pay lip service to it. We need to address it. They need to get on the front foot.
Bear too on the chat just mentioned about the cameras and things that would be picked up on at the ground. Thanks for writing in, mate. Before you joined the chat, we were just talking about the fact that Kane Corns also alleges that an 18-year-old woman was king hit at the ground, knocked unconscious, had to be taken by ambulance to hospital. Now, yes, you're right that there are security cameras around, but do you really, does he really expect us to believe that in front of 53,000 people, someone has king hit or coward punched an 18-year-old woman unconscious and that nobody has done anything, that no security, no police, no video on the phone, nothing? I mean, seriously.
Quite possible, Pete. It was probably her husband.
Macca. I have to say one thing that did come out of this, which was slightly pleasing, is the statement from the AFL Players Indigenous Advisory Board, which does include Chad Wingard, but it was signed primarily by Sean Burgon, and he also made a further statement, which I thought was really quite powerful. And if anybody can get a chance to read it, they should do so. But one of the most important things that was in there that was said was that these are more than just words, and the impact these slurs have on the player, their family, their children, and their community is profound. And despite the amazing work done in the community by our brothers and sisters, they continue to experience this disgraceful treatment.
Well, quite frankly, it is disgusting. Imagine as a human being vilified like that, and for no reason other than the fact of the colour of your skin and that great big lump of lard that put on her face, the things that she said in particular too, that was absolutely disgusting. And, it's just not acceptable. In fact, she has been charged by the police now.
Yeah, that was good news. That was the other thing I meant to say. So in 2 home showdowns, they've had 2 member suspensions and an arrest. So anyway, good on them. All right, look, we should probably just rule a line under that, noting that we're a little bit up against the clock tonight. Let's talk about something positive just before we get to Hugh Greenwood. Let's talk about the game on Saturday night. I thought it was a terrific win from Adelaide, and Macca, as we both agreed last week, I think we even called it accurately to the goal that we said that they would come out breathing fire. They would kick the first 3 goals, and the crowd would erupt and they would be going crazy, which all of that happened. And as we also suspected, we were good enough and mentally strong enough to claw our way back into the game. And I thought it was around about halfway through the second quarter that I really felt comfortable that we were back in control. I thought that there were 3 key efforts. Obviously, Rory Sloane was unbelievable. Tex Walker was unbelievable, and Kyle Hardigan was just absolutely fantastic down back as well. And Feen, I'll just throw to you, just with the fact that we did the halftime show, and the first time I've participated in that, it was good fun. And I gave a bit of a bait to Riley Knight at halftime that he hadn't done enough, and that he was the kind of player that needed to get involved in the second half. Really, really wrapped with the way that he came through in the second half. And the other player, for an honourable mention from me, was Curtly Hampton, the big bulldozer in the middle. Another 9 tackles, 27 pressure acts, if you don't mind, leading all players on the ground, equal leading highest tackle count. and he picked up his 18 possessions as well. He is a beast in the middle.
Loved his game.
And he's doing things aside from just getting kicks and handballs, which is what we want someone like a Wayne Miller to do. But you're right about Riley Knight. We highlighted that he'd had precious little of the ball and precious little impact on the play up until half time. But as Nicky Mackey and myself highlighted in the Sunday Wrap, it's great to have fresh players at the end of the game, and he was running on top of the ground as well as a couple of others at the end of the game. And in the end, Port had no answer to our constant run.
And so there's silence. We're all pretty happy with that.
Well, you can all have a say if you like. I mean, I just mouthed off there for about 2 minutes, so I thought I'd take a break.
Okay, I was actually thought you were going to respond to that, Pete. That's why I didn't come in there. But yes, it did go. I thought, according to the way that we read it, and it was pretty typical, and it was very, very physical. The early part of the game. In fact, Rory Sloane said that the first 10 minutes was probably the most physical he's played under, and he said he was waiting, and it kept going for the whole of the first quarter. And he thought, thank God that'll be it. And he said it kept going for all of the games. So it was a very physical game, and I think we thought that was Port's one and only chance was to bring that type of game, because they haven't got as good a game plan or players as we have, and the best way for them was to do that. Having said that, like you guys were saying, by about halfway through the second quarter, I did feel that we were in control of the game, and that no matter what happened from that point on, we would go on and win. And although, we never really stitched it away. Curtly Hampton, I loved his game. It was Curtly's going to be a magnificent addition, because he's just getting better every week that he goes round. And I think you've described very well what his contribution. Sloaney and Tex, of course, they played leaders' games, and I've at times have been a critic of Hartigan, for leaving his brain back in the club rooms, but gee, didn't he play a beauty? He played an absolute beauty on Gray, and for a guy his size to match up on a guy Gray's size and to beat him just goes to show that, Kyle, you have got it upstairs, mate. Just use it all the time.
PJ Crows on the chat was asking for the time on ground stats. Sorry, PJ, I haven't got them right in front of me, and if I put them up on FootyWire now, I'll probably crash the car. So, but essentially, Port's 5 or so main midfield rotation had 85% or above time on ground, whereas our midfield rotation, which went down to about 8, I think, had between 65 and 82% time on the ground. So we're far fresher at the end of the game.
What I'm liking as well, and you highlighted this a couple of weeks ago, Phoenix, is that we seem to have a whole collection of players who manage to just get that 15 to 20 possessions. So, I mean, we've got a couple of players, obviously Matt Crouch and Rory Sloane, who get their numbers, but we then have a whole host of players that seem to just all chip in with their 15 or 20, and when you look at them individually, you think you might sort of be fooled into thinking yourself, oh, they had a bit of a quiet game. But I just tend to think, and we're not in the coach's box, but there just seems to be some strategic spreading of the load throughout the midfield. And I'm sure that's probably reflected time and ground stats as well. But we just have these guys that are getting between their 10 and 20. And I noticed that Rat got his hat trick of 19 possessions. So I'm not quite sure what odds you might have got on that at the start of the season for Rat to get 19 possessions 3 games in a row. But anyway, I think that's a great sign as well.
I have to say I quite enjoyed Hampton's after-match interview, which is up on the club website, and he talked about the fact that he's actually had watched every Showdown beforehand that's ever been played, because he was a Crows supporter growing up. So he knew what it was about coming into playing this as his first ever game. But he couldn't talk highly enough of how calm and relaxed the leaders in the club actually kept everyone leading into it. He said it's the loudest crowd he's ever played in front of. But that the fact that keeping the team calm and focused. It just helped them, even though Port got the bit of the run on at the start, just helped them play their game on and get the game back on our terms.
We certainly never looked panicked. We were rushed at times because they were quite frenetic early because they play on their emotion. But we never lost structure, we never lost shape, and we never seemed to lose composure, one or two incidents notwithstanding. But there's a certain maturity about the Adelaide Football Club this year that I think is a little bit new. The players have been together now predominantly now for a couple of years. They've had Pikey now for, 18 months or so, and there's a level of calmness and maturity about the group, which I think is a real hallmark of successful teams, and it really bodes well, I think, for where this group can go over the next few years.
And we were a younger team than Port Adelaide that we put out there.
That's right.
Yeah, I think you're right on those counts, and good observation, Nikki. All right, look, I think we probably should throw to our Hugh Greenwood interview. I think it's probably an appropriate time. Hope I haven't caught you on the hop there, Fiend. And
no, I'm all good. Well, who knows?
Good to go.
Jesus.
So let's roll with a chat with our very, very popular state league captain, Hugh Greenwood. We've got a very, very special guest this evening. It is the captain of the SNFL Crows side, Hugh Greenwood. Good evening, Hugh. How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you guys going?
Very well, and thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate you giving up your time. Just to kick off, just wondering, you originally came from interstate, and so you've settled into Adelaide. Just wondering how that's been going and how you're feeling around the city. It's I know you're quite popular on social media, even though you haven't actually played an AFL game yet. So, how's it been settling in?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I've come pretty much from the US. I've been away from the ocean for quite a while, so it's nice to come back. And my partner and I are living in Henley, which is fantastic, and we've really embraced the city, which has also embraced us as well. So, it's fun. It's obviously a footy town, which is also exciting as well. So we really feel at home here in Adelaide.
Now, just on that, with you feeling at home, we interviewed Cheney last year and had a bit of a chat about his little bulldog and the issues that he has with that dog. Now, I know you have Jax, and you've just recently got a new one, Rioli. Is that right?
Yeah, Rioli. Yeah.
Now, who actually started this? Because Atkins, so the Rat now has a British bulldog, so he's gone against the grain. Mitch McGovern picked up a new one, a Frenchie, on the weekend as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's got a Frenchie too now. Yep.
So how many of them are there in the club?
Yeah, Tony, I guess, is the trendsetter. He's had Wheezy for a couple of years, and then I got mine last year. I got Jax last year, and now since then, obviously Rat's got the British, but then Charlie Cameron, I think, was next with George. So he's George's little Frenchie, or black Frenchie. He's, I think, a couple of months. And then, Gov's got his little black Frenchie as well, Pablo. And then I've got one last weekend. I adopted one last weekend. His name's Rioli, which is fun. They were Hawthorn fans. So I think it's been 3 or 4 years old, so it might be a little bit late to change the name, but there's definitely a bit of a bulldog clan going at the Crows.
Now, I'm just a bit curious as to why you all started from Wheezy, because he's a very unique creature, that one. So is there anything like Jax or Rioli has that kind of sets them apart?
Yeah, well, I don't know if Cheney told you the story about Wheezy, but Wheezy likes to do things differently. He likes to go to the bathroom a little bit differently. I'm assuming he told you guys. Yeah. So he's the king. So Wheezy's the king. He's the top dog. But no, there's nothing really. Well, Rioli, I got on the weekend. His tongue's twice the average size of a normal Frenchie. So his tongue just hangs out of his mouth. So he just looks funny all the time. But Jackson doesn't really do anything too different. They're a strange dog. They're a funny dog. So pretty much everything they do is a little bit different.
Macca here, and look, I'm a bit of a fan of yours, Hugh. I think you've got a lot of talent, and I look forward to the day when you make your debut, mate.
Thank you.
In the pre-season, you played AFL at the top level, and I mean, it's been a progression for you coming back from basketball back to footy. How did you find playing in those pre-season games, the standard of that, compared to SANFL?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that it was definitely a big step up. Funny enough, I grew up as a Geelong fan all my life, and to make my sort of debut in the JLT anyway against them was certainly eye-opening. When you chat to the guys who played AFL, they say it's another level, and it certainly was that. But at the same time, I didn't feel too out of place. Obviously, I think being a mature body, not a first year like a rookie 18-year-old. I've got some years maturity-wise on some of the other guys, so I didn't feel too out of place. Felt pretty comfortable. Obviously, it helps. Got that second game against Brisbane with a lot of the senior guys, so they really helped me out as well. And it certainly was challenging, but at the same time, I didn't really feel too out of place. So hopefully, when I eventually make my debut, I'm not looking like like I don't belong.
What did you think were the major differences?
The speed, definitely the speed. I think that's something that's been probably the hardest thing since coming back to footy. Back when I was playing juniors, it just, the skills weren't there. The level of play obviously was not the level it's going to be at AFL level. So when I've come back, just the speed of the game, and certainly noticed that at the AFL and the JLT, and apparently it'll go up another notch from what I've heard in the AFL. So it's something that I need to continue to improve on and continue to work on, but certainly the speed's probably been the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, the thing I've noticed though, towards the end of last year and especially starting again this year, you're really rolling together some really good, consistent performances. So you just keep knocking on the door, mate, and eventually you'll knock it down.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying. That's what my old man tells me every day. Just keep knocking, keep asking the question, which is what I'm trying to do.
Hey mate, now you mentioned earlier that you're not an 18-year-old rookie. I just wondered if you could give us some insight into your background. Obviously, you come from a basketball background, and maybe some of the similarities and differences between being a professional or involved in a professional basketball program and being involved in a professional Aussie rules program.
Yeah, I think coming from basketball has certainly helped. And the background that I've come from, I moved to the RAS. I moved away from Tassie when I was 15 to go to the RAS. Spent 4 years there with Marty Clark, who's helped me a lot, and I learned from a young age, what it was going to take to play high level sports. So I was fortunate enough to do that. Spent time during that time with the national team, so played with guys that played in the NBA and play at the highest level. So it was a fly on the wall in that program too, and then obviously moving over to the States and get international experience as well. So I think those certainly helped me when I was eventually came back to play professional sports. And yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot off the field or off the court in basketball, but obviously some of the stuff I've taken on the court from basketball as well, just awareness of obviously basketball seem to do well on the footy field. So I think most of the stuff I learned from basketball has come away from the court, and I'm sure I was able to transfer away from footy. So to name one or a couple of different things would be hard, but I certainly feel like I pulled a lot of different things from basketball to football.
Would you think that one of those things might be that because you in basketball operate in confined areas, that's helped you operate in a confined area at AFL level or SANFL level?
Yeah, certainly. You're right. If I was to point one thing out, that would certainly be it. I think last year I started off as a forward, but I feel like you see, when I came on and started playing my best footy towards the end of last year and early this year, was in the midfield. So I think, yeah, like you said, just the stuff in the confined spaces and decision making, while there's a lot of bodies and stuff around you, seems to be a strength, and you'll notice that with a lot of guys that have played basketball that are playing footy now.
And mate, it was widely reported that it was Hamish Ogilvie that was one of the instigators to get you into the Adelaide Crows program. What was the catalyst for you to finally make the move, and was it a difficult decision for you to make at the time?
Yeah, the great man Hamish Ogilvie was one of my state coaches down in Tassie, so I had a really strong relationship with him. So when I did make the decision, which was obviously really, really difficult, I needed to be sure that it was the right one, and he certainly reassured me. And for a couple of months out, I was struggling along and thinking, have I made the right call? But this time now, it's been one of the best decisions I've made. at the time it was really difficult. I pretty much had done basketball all my life, and that was my plan and my identity. So to sort of throw an awesome opportunity in Perth, so for them to understand and let me go and chase this dream was, credit to them. But, I had my future set in stone in terms of the 10-15 year basketball career. To throw it all away for a footy career was challenging, but one that I'm certainly happy that I've made.
Hugh, just asking about the responsibility or the extra responsibility you've taken on this year with being the SNFL captain. Just wonder if you could talk us through what extra that involves for you and how that role's going for you.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous when Pikey and Rock called me into Pikey's office. I didn't know what they were going to tell me, but it was good news in the end, which was good. I was really nervous, but guess you go back to basketball, so I thought they were going to say. But they got me in the office and asked me if I wanted to do it. I said yes right away, and it's myself and Keithy, so it's awesome to have him. Hopefully he'll be back from injury soon, so to have him out in the field will be awesome. I feel it will certainly help development-wise, and we've got the best skipper in the AFL voted last year, Tex Walker, so obviously Rory Sloan being vice-captain of the All-Australian team, so we've got some good guys to learn from, so I'm very lucky in that.
Just also just noting your leadership qualities, obviously the club's seen that. There's certainly been some publicity also off the field just in relation to some charity work that you undertake. Did you want to talk the listeners through some of the charity stuff that you do in relation to your mother? I know that's attracted some publicity since you've been at the club. Yeah, yep. So when I came to the club, I was the only one with long hair, and I copped a little bit for it, but I'd been growing that out for a number of years. I had a charity or a fundraiser in the States in honour of Mum, who's battling terminal breast cancer. So I grew that hair as sort of a symbol towards my charity. And I think over in the States, we raised about $100,000 for our local cancer centre in New Mexico, which did some really awesome things. So obviously, to be able for a charity to be successful, you need to have your roots within the community. So it's something that hopefully I'll stick in Adelaide for a while and build that relationship with the community and hopefully, again, do something similar.
Now, on that, with the Lobos, that's the right way to say it, isn't it?
That's it, Lobos. I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. Some of the boys still don't know how to pronounce it.
You went back there over the summer break and you took Cam with you. Mm-hmm. And his injury is unfortunate, but it was really lovely to see him on the sidelines at the SNFL yelling at you lot. And was that also a nice little chance to catch up with your sister? Is she still playing with them?
She's recently graduated, yep. So we were very, very lucky that we got to share that experience. But she's since graduated, which was really cool. So her last year was this year. She actually moved home a little bit earlier to be closer to mum and closer to home, but the team over there let her graduate and do all that. So it was cool to see her. My partner's family is all from the States, and I've got a lot of friends that are still there. And obviously we trained our butts off too. That was the idea, was to go over there and train. New Mexico is pretty high up there in terms of elevation. So, Cam was obviously really unfortunate to build a great relationship with him. So to see him go down is pretty shattering. But like you said, he's doing some things in the SANFL and doing stuff away from footy to keep him busy. I'm sure we're looking forward to getting back late this year and early next year.
Yeah, just the other part, before you went there, you, of course, went to Fiji.
Yeah, we had
the other boys that decided to practice some building. Yeah,
lived it up in the off-season. My first year of footy, I thought I'd live up the off-season. So we did the Fiji trip with Eddie and Anna. They organised obviously to do some building in the kindergarten. My whole family, they're all builders, but our family in particular is more athletes, so I haven't really got my hands dirty too often throughout my life. I usually let them all do that sort of stuff. I'm the guy that brings coffees and stuff. That's about all I'm good for. So I got my hands dirty, was good. And I got some free time as well. We sort of visited the BLK factory and did some things like that, which was really cool. And obviously bonded with the guys and their families and their kids. Most of the guys, all of them had kids other than Jake Lever and Jess, although they might be soon. Myself and Kirsten don't have kids other than the dogs. So, it was a fun experience.
Sounds like a good trip. As I said, you've been playing good footy, but do the coaches talk to you on the side and talk about your game and say to you, we'd like to see you do a little bit more of this or a bit more of that, or change your aspect of your game to be more attacking or more defensive? Is there anything there in particular they want you to work on?
Yeah, for sure. Well, just 12 months ago, I was having to work on a bunch of different things because, it was my first game of footy in 8 years, so it was pretty hard hearing all these different things to work on and not being able to. Well, obviously, it's hard to work on a bunch of different things at once. But now, 12 months on, it's getting a lot more specific in what I need to do to play at the next level. So, for me, being a basketballer, I was a point guard, so I was often the smallest guy on the court. But now playing footy and playing in the midfield, I'm actually a bigger body and generally stronger. So for me, the feedback at the moment is can you continue to use my strength and body around the contest. I've got a tendency to do little scrubby surge kicks. So now it's about being strong with the footy and being able to chain out and get handballs and bust out of packs. So it's good that I'm not having to work on handballs or aerials or this sort of ground balls and sort of stuff like that. It's only one thing, so I can get my head around it.
Yeah, and so is it more, do they want you to be more physical, or is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so my tackling and stuff's one of my strengths, but now it's about when I get tackled, just being strong with the ball and being able to do different things rather than just do little surge kicks, maybe test the tackle a little bit more and give a handball to a guy in space or get a few extra metres and get a longer kick or connect that way. So basically just using my strength and size in the contest a little bit better.
And is there any one particular coach that you work more closely with than others?
I worked really closely with Tate Kaiser last year. He's moved. He's got his big time now. He's the head of team defence, so I still work a little bit with him, but not so much now. So Rock was the one I really worked with close towards last year and this year with the Sample mids. But like 12 months ago, I wasn't really sure where I was going to play, so I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of different coaches and build relationships with a lot of the guys, but Rock probably more so in particular now.
Thanks, mate.
Have you found, mate, that you've had to reconfigure your physique, your body shape to cope with the different demands of AFL footy?
Yeah, I found out the hard way, that's for sure. I came back for pre-season last year, well, going into my first year, I was probably 96 kilos, thinking back to when I was playing, he was the biggest and strongest, and then I soon realised it's not really about that, it's how fast and how far he can run. So this time of year, probably 89, 88 kilos, so body's pretty much changed a whole lot to adapt to footy. So PPT staff were really great, managing my body, and the dietitians, nutrition, all that sort of stuff's really helped me to get to where my body is now, and it's probably feeling the best it ever has.
Now, mate, one of the questions we tend to ask when things get a little bit off track on this thing, and you might have an interesting perspective. We generally ask who's the best sledger on the track, but before I ask you that, I'd like to know what's the quality of sledging like in Aussie rules compared to college basketball? Is the same quality there? Are we up world standard, or how's that tracking?
It's pretty good. I feel like you can get away with a whole lot more on a footy field. You don't have, on a basketball court, if you say something, you're guaranteed a referee's going to hear it or someone on the sideline's going to hear it. But when you're out in a footy field, it's pretty much you can say whatever you want. So footy's pretty extreme, and obviously Aussies like to take it to another level as well. So it's close. Often you get college and basketball, it's the fans. So college, it's the student sections that get stuck into you that way. So I guess it's the same as AFL. I haven't been out on an actual AFL ground. Our Sample opposition fans get pretty passionate, but I think,
that's one way of saying it.
They get very passionate. Yeah, well, passionate's a good word, isn't it? Passionate. We'll soon see what it's like. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully see what AFL likes, games like soon enough.
And what about on the track, mate? I won't preempt with who usually gets the nod.
I think you might have a name in mind already. You have a couple of names in mind already.
Probably one.
Yes or no. Well, it's tough now. Bull reckons, after all the stuff that Bull said the other day, reckons he's the sledger. Yeah, what did he say?
Oh, that was a good one.
Who did he put? Stevie J. That was clever.
That was clever, actually. Is he actually? Is he trying to make a run for Sledger of the Year or something or other? Because that was pretty solid. Usually Walker gets a nod.
Yeah. Well, you just see Walker whenever one of our forwards, does something well on an opposition defender, he'll be the first one to go and let him know about it. You don't really hear him. You sort of see his mouth moving when the camera's sort of going. So he'd certainly be out there letting guys know. But we've got some clever guys. Lynchy doesn't mind it, especially on the track. Yeah. Lynchy loves getting into it. Obviously, Brodie Smith and Leedy, they pretty much just go at each other more than anyone else. So
Lynchy would be quiet during the games, wouldn't he? Because he goes the soft option and just gives his mates lip rather than the opposition.
Yeah, I was about to say he might give us more lip than the opposition. But no, there's some characters. There's certainly some characters for sure.
Yeah.
One of the other fun questions we asked last year, because we heard about the new sleep room that was brought in to the club.
Yeah.
And so the question we kind of posed was, who is the one person that when you walk into a sleep room and you see they're in there, you know you're not going to get any rest, and so you just turn straight back out again?
Like, because they're going to snore, or they're just going to carry on, or what?
It could be for any reason. We did get some interesting replies.
Yeah, well, I'm one of the ones that I'll use the sleep room a lot. Living in the States and going to college, I relied on my nap to pretty much get me through with all my classes and training and late nights and stuff. So I'm a serial napper, so I don't mind the nap room at all. But if there's one guy you don't really want to share it with, it's probably Rat, because you just don't know what you're going to get. There could be something in the bed. He'll just carry on. He'll be on his phone. You'll get a little bit uneasy when Rat's around because you think he's going to play some sort of prank or joke on you pretty much. So you can't really get too comfortable.
Fair enough.
You notice obviously there's a few basketballers down there now. We've got Tom Dito, he was recruited to the club, and Josh Jenkins. Is there any get-togethers down there for some hoops, or how does that go?
Yeah, no, when I got to the club, I felt like I was the best basketballer here, but in the last 12 months, bloody Erin Phillips has come along, and she's the best basketballer. I said, that's all right, I hope I'll still be the best footballer. I thought, at least I'll still be the better footballer now, but sure enough, she's better at that as well. So Erin's probably the best basketballer at our club, and almost our best footy player as well. So the boys, we've got a lot of wannabes. We've got a lot of wannabe backyard basketballers. Dudes, we've played some big country. Obviously, JJ did some stuff with the Crocs. Ricky Henderson for a while was before he left was pretty handy as well. He played Siebel for Ballarat. So I think honestly most of them are wannabe basketballers. They're all experts, they reckon. If we were to put a group of five together and play opposition clubs, I reckon it would actually be pretty handy though.
Mate, what I've noticed though is that it's carrying over into these quite creative post-goal celebrations. Some pretty weird vibing going on there. Is that? I know the boys are into their NBA. Is that a carryover from that? Do they sit down? Does Charlie and Tex, for example, or Charlie and Eddie, do they have a half an hour just for that sort of stuff to choreograph?
No, they have to. I reckon they've been watching too much sports, I reckon. They've been watching way too much sports center. I think Charlie's been watching too much James Harden, Russell Westbrook. Even Rat did a little basketball celebration the other week. And Tex and that, they have their own little hand signals as well. So I think they're trying to bring it over. There's been some other questionable celebrations across the AFL as well that I've seen. So I don't mind it. As long as it doesn't deter from what's really happening. Hopefully, reset and get ready to go for the next play or the next bounce. But I don't mind a bit of carry on. It's good to see.
Just as long as nobody does the dab. I know Louis Betts, with one of his little post-game celebrations, did a dab as part of it. And it's just like, no.
No, just no. You can do it on the training track, and we've seen a few on the training track, but I hope it never gets ceased. I hope it never gets to a game.
Oh, come on. Okay, spill. Who's on the training track? Name and shame.
Oh no, it's honestly, it was a phenomenon, absolute phenomenon at the club, across the whole AFL. So, Riley O'Brien, believe it or not, it's hard to picture. It's not good to picture, but Riley O'Brien calls himself the Dab King. So I'll leave you with that thought in your head. Not good.
Oh, no.
It's not good to think about, is it? But he's the one. He's the Dab King. Yeah.
Horrible thought.
It is horrible. I'll let you with that.
Look, we as people on the outside looking in, we all have our idols in the AFL. You're on the verge of it. Is there any, from all the clubs, is there any one player that you would say is a player you'd love to be able to play like?
Geez, that's a tough one. You don't really want to compare. Growing up, funny enough, we had our sample launch the other day, and the guys were doing their speeches and they were talking about I mentioned Gary Hocking taking over South, and I said, Gary Hocking, I said to Ryan, who's our media guy, I said, Gary Hocking, like, Buddha. He's like, yep. I was like, where is he? And he was standing right in front of me, so he's my favourite player going up. So I was too scared to go and say anything to him. I've got photos all over my room of him and I as a kid. So I haven't had a chance to say hello to him. So he was my player going up. Him and Cam Mooney were my favourite guys from Geelong growing up. There's a lot of guys I like to watch within the AFL. Obviously, Fife is fun. It's really fun to watch. Paddy as well. So being able to match up on him in the JLT was really cool. So I don't think I'll compare myself to anyone, but they're probably the ones I really like to watch.
All right, Hugh, look, we've probably borrowed enough of your time. It's getting around tea time. You probably need to go and cook a meal or something. But we've really appreciated having you on tonight. It's great to get some insights. You've been really a wonderful acquisition for the club in terms of what you bring, in terms of your professionalism from another sport, but and also the leadership that you bring as well. You're an incredibly popular player, as I said at the start of the interview. Given that you haven't played a game yet, we certainly hope that you do. We're very, very much looking forward to seeing how you get on in the AFL. We've watched your development over the last couple of years, and you really are on the verge of, as Macca said before, you really are banging the door down at the moment, and we certainly hope to see you make your AFL debut soon.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun here tonight, so hopefully I'll chat to you guys again sometime soon, but thanks again.
There you have it. Back to you, Pete.
Geez, you caught me out there. I was just napping away there.
Come on, mate.
Look, it was a great interview, and just comes across as a terrific bloke. And I think that he came across as everything that I thought he would be, in the sense that he has got a really good reputation down there as just being a really affable, good bloke, a great leader. Obviously, given the captaincy of the sample team, and just his professionalism as well. I think that. He's got a rookie spot, but he's just not really a rookie player, is he? He's a bit more than that.
I think it was the comment he'd made a few days ago when they were talking about the captaincy, was that he's actually, every team he's been involved in, he's ended up in the leadership group or captaining the team. So it's no surprise that he's ended up as our SANFL captain. And to answer Treeman, he's 25, but I think the fact that he's come into this game a bit later and he's that midfield type, that he's, if fingers crossed he does make it, he's going to he could play into his 30s, is what I'm anticipating.
What was really interesting that came out of that interview, and I'm sure you'll agree, and well done, Macca, for asking the question, but what was really interesting is what the coaches are doing with him at the moment, and obviously looking at him being that burst player out of clearances and working with the fact that he is a big body in there, but also working with not just getting in and getting a scrappy clearance away to get him to almost, I guess, how Dangerfield plays, and that is to extract, but also to be able to burst away and just do a little bit more with winning the clearance. It was a really interesting take on where they see him, and I just think that he's 25, but I think it's his time. I think he's arrived, and I think that I feel certain we'll see him this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's almost a Monty to get upgraded, I think, Pete. All he needs is to string 3 or 4 performances together. He certainly played well on the weekend against Sturt, and just a mature fella, and it looks like he's got the world before him in terms of AFL football.
And what he was talking about there with Macca, as you just highlighted, Pete, that's what I actually saw from him on the weekend. I described in the cast on Sunday that pretty much him and Crouch kind of just went into beast mode in that midfield, and we were smashing Sturt's midfield.
Come on now.
I like that. I like it. Can we keep that?
I went to Ali High. We used to get called Smurfs. So, because the colours we wore, and that's the same colours as Sturt, so yeah, we call them the Smurfs too, little blue shits, and yeah, it was exactly what he was describing there. It was what I saw from him on the weekend.
Yeah, why I think his star is on the rise, because as he said, he hadn't played 7 years, and the first year back he's had to improve his game in many areas, and he's done that in a lot of the areas, and now he's down to focusing on the type of player that they want him to be. And as you said, Nicky, like he played in beast mode, and that's obviously what they are looking for, because we've got a variety of midfielders. You've got Matt Crouch, who's an accumulator, and there are blokes like Hampton, who's playing a very, very strong role in terms of tackling and et cetera, but he's also got some evasive skills, and then you've got some outside players. But it's always good to have that beast like a Wines type player, and I think that's what they've probably got lined up for him. And it may not be this year that he makes it, but I think he will make it. If it's not late this year, he certainly will make it next year. And the way to do that is just to keep, as I said, just keep playing like you are, and you'll knock the door down, and one day it'll open.
And he's a left footer too, so that gives a different look to the midfield.
Just as we're up against the clock, can we morph this now into selection this week for Essendon? Do we see Hugh getting a game? Mitch McGovern will obviously come out. Obviously, odds on Troy Menzel comes back in as a like-for-like replacement. Only thing I think into Huey's favour this week is call-up.
Fix your mic up, Pete.
Essendon are quite a strong-bodied midfield. We saw that on, if you saw them play on Sunday, I know it was in the wet, but guys like Watson still getting plenty of possessions, Heppel, Goddard, all big-bodied midfielders that really bulldoze their way through, and I'm wondering whether Greenwood might be a suitable acquisition.
I think because the forward line's got two out, and in terms of we haven't got Jenkins, and now we haven't got McGovern either. I think that Otten becomes a replacement for Jenkins, and Phoenix almost was implying that he does a better job, but the other day. But but he certainly was very, very competent, and I think your original comment is right. But it'll be Menzel, because to try and keep, although it may be different personnel, they'll try and keep the same structure, I think.
I'm not so sure. I think we're now two big, strong marking types down, and I don't think we can survive without that second marking option. I know we've got Andy Otten up there at the moment as a fill-in.
And he is a good mark.
He is definitely a good mark, but he was certainly...
And he crashes the pack.
I mean, the amount of focus that Port put on McGovern last weekend, they had Hamish Hartlett basically scragging and pushing and shoving and all the rest of it on McGovern the whole time to keep him out of the contest. Well, imagine if McGovern wasn't there, how much more pressure would have been on Andy Otten to take a few grabs. So I wonder, Harry Deer didn't show much on the weekend for the SANFL Crows, but we certainly need another marking type up forward, in my opinion.
No, Harry Deer couldn't possibly get a game on his last game in the SANFL.
Nicky, Hugh kicked a couple of goals on Sunday. He does tend to go forward a little bit.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, is he a potential, rotating midfield forward option that could replace McGovern?
I think he is a possibility. I think it'll probably actually between him and Menzel. Why I'm erring more on the side of Menzel was that Menzel was in round one, and we all kind of agreed that it was a tough decision between him and Riley Knight for being dropped for the next game, with Tex coming back in. And so I think he's kind of a bit more first cab on the rank in possibly their thinking. And he had a really good game in the SANFL as well. What
about Jono Beach?
He would have to upgrade him as well. And he had a nice, neat game on the wing. So we've actually got some nice options there. So it all depends, I think, on what we want from that forward line, and whether we want somebody who also has the ability to go into the midfield, which for all three of them, that's exactly the same opportunity. They all can do it.
Yeah, I reckon Pike will be looking to maintain structure, because what if our game is built around a certain structure in the forward line? Andy Otten fills Jenkins' role pretty good, and so that isn't too much down the spout. In fact, it mightn't even be down the spout in some ways. And but it'll need somebody to play the McGovern type role as near as possible. And I know Menzel is not the same type, exactly the type of player, but he can sort of play that type of role, and I think that's what he'll be asked to do.
I'd probably prefer to see Beach, to be honest with you, Macca. I think Beach gives us some strength in the air that Menzel doesn't give us, as well as something at ground level. And I think he's far more like for like. For McGovern, he's obviously not the same amount of talent, but he gives us a similar sort of player. I think Menzel changes our forward structure quite substantially.
Well, it's going to change to some degree, because whether it's John O'Beach or whether Bigham. What?
Siri wants you to repeat it.
That was Google, whatever it's called, Siri, saying what the fuck are you saying?
Yeah. Well, maybe she's right. But, you know.
So, very surprisingly, we can't agree on who should come in. And so I think the options are obviously Greenwood, Menzel and Beach. And I think, Nikki, you correctly point out that all three offer similar kind of characteristics, although Menzel probably not so much with the marking. We're hard up against the clock. We need to squeeze in the Cockwomble of the week. I think that there'll be no shortage of nominations this week.
There's certainly a shortage of Cockwomble music, because I'm.
That's okay. We'll get on to the nominations.
Well, I actually think because the Cockwomble is not just somebody who's done something stupid, but preferably sometimes we like it, the ones that make us laugh. And the ultimate ones this weekend were the North Melbourne cheer squad, who could not even spell their captain's name correctly on the banner.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I would find that very hard to be topped.
Did they spell it as?
They put double L.
No, they put the I and the E around the wrong way.
But it's not double L either, is it?
I don't think so either.
Yeah, it was completely stuffed anyway.
It's like nobody thought to check the spelling before they made the really, really, really big letters.
I don't mind an old favourite, Dwayne Russell, just for informing us for the 57,000th time that Brodie Smith was an old Port fan, and his family's all Port Adelaide, and they used to go to watch Port when he was a kid. And I don't know how many times I've heard that trotted out, that story. But I'm just going to throw Dwayne in there, because we should never forget that Dwayne just continues to cockwomble his way around the AFL each and every week.
Yeah,
yes, Ben. Thank you, Freeman. Thank you for reminding me. The journo over in Western Australia who asked Beveridge.
Oh, yes. No,
whether
there's a winner.
Vincent might come in.
Yes, there's a winner. I forgot about that one.
Yeah,
well done, whoever reminded us about that.
Yeah, Will Minson definitely won't play this week.
No,
hands down.
He's retired.
Right,
I actually, as much as we don't like Beveridge, that was actually a fairly polite-ish way he kind of handled that.
He carved him up with just 3 or 4 words.
Yeah,
he could have slammed him.
He could have really gone at him. If that was Malthouse, you can imagine what Malthouse would have done.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that just about takes us out to any save rounds. Anybody want to just chuck anything at the end?
No. Nothing.
Call signs, Fane?
At AFL Crowcast on Twitter and Facebook. Crows Fan Central, obviously. You can like us on iTunes. Give us a review if you're listening to us on iTunes, because it helps our rankings. We have Scorpus on Thursday night at 7:30 with the preview cast. We have the Halftime Break Show, which is up to half a century's worth of listens this week. So we're pushing up there. I put it all down to you, Pete. And then, of course, Sunday night with the Rap Show at 7 o'clock on Sunday night. So, that's it.
And if I remember, and if I can, I actually might try and call in from the game.
Thanks very much, everyone. Huge thanks to Hugh Greenwood for making some time available for us. It was a terrific interview, and we really enjoyed chatting to him. Thanks, Fane, for all your technical support as always. Nikki Macca, thanks very much for joining us this evening and for all of your contributions.
Hurry up, I'm running out of outro.
Thanks very much, everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Goodbye.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.